Hello, this is Postdoc Chronicles week number 67, and in this Chronicles, we are featuring the game Ace Attorney Trilogy for the Nintendo Switch. So, of course, this game started way back when on the Game Boy Advance. Unfortunately, the series on the Game Boy Advance, the first three series, it's only in Japan, okay, and there's no like fun translation for it. But then eventually, it got like released for the Nintendo DS when the DS was released after it succeeded the Game Boy Advance. So the three games there, the original Ace Attorney, Phoenix Wright, and then Ace Attorney, Justice for All, and then Ace Attorney, Trials and Tribulation, they all came out for the DS, and then eventually, I believe they also came out for the iOS and Android. I'm not sure for Android, but I'm pretty sure it came out also for the iOS. And then later on, the trilogy went out for the Nintendo 3DS, and then now currently we have the another trilogy on the Nintendo Switch. So I want to show you here that I also have the game. I initially played the trilogy on the DS, and I'm replaying right now the trilogy on the 3DS because also I want to have the save file, and also I'm playing it on the Nintendo Switch because it has a HD rumble, so it's very cool. Okay, but anyway, what is this game about? Ace Attorney. So basically, if you're familiar with the book series, like when I was in high school, there's this book series called "You Be the Jury." So I was like, the first time I saw this book was from June Alonso, my classmate in high school. He had this book, "You Be the Jury," and basically it's like it's there's like a case, and then it's like being presented in court, and then you are presented with three drawings: exhibit A, exhibit B, exhibit C, and then you will be the jury. You get to decide whether whatever the case they're presenting. So, for example, someone killed someone. Is this guy guilty or not? And then you will be looking at three exhibits: exhibit A, exhibit B, exhibit C, and then from looking at the drawings, from looking at the exhibits, you get to decide. I think this guy is guilty, and then you look at the back. There's like an answer at the back to tell you whether you're correct or not. So, like I believe every single book you be the jury. There's like I don't know how many cases there are. I forgot, maybe three or five. I'm not sure, but I think I still have like eventually I started hunting for these books, and I believe I have like five copies of You Be the Jury back in my library in Dumaguete. I also have like along with that, I also have like a large collection of Encyclopedia Brown. It's also a very nice book about this young boy, young detective. But yeah, You Be the Jury, it's cool because you look at three exhibits and then you get to decide. You look for contradictions, and you think, if you're familiar with that book, think of that book, but then on steroids. You get the Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. And the nice thing about Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright is, so you have that, so you get to think, because Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright, this guy, the main character, he is like a defense attorney. So you have to prove that your client is not guilty. That's your main goal. And it's very over the top because the characters are animated, and when the way when they face each other, like objection, like take that, like hold it. It's very cool. And so what happens is, so there will be a case. You'll be given like a snippet of the case, and majority of the game, so basically it's a visual novel. So if you don't like games where it involves a lot of reading, then this game is not for you. If you're into games where it's like action and shooting and stuff, this game is not for you. This is a thinking game. So you read a lot of stuff, and then you think how you would defend your client. So basically, the bulk of the game is, so you're the defense attorney, you're Phoenix Wright, and then you have an opposing a prosecutor. The prosecutor would be calling witnesses, would be presenting evidences on the court. So the court would have the evidences, and then they will, the witness will be like telling their testimony. And your job as a defense attorney is you cross-examine it. So you look for contradictions in their testimony based on the evidence that you have on the court. So for example, they could say, I believe I found the body. I'm sure I found the body at 1 p.m. And then you look at the court record. It says there from the autopsy report, the body died at 3 p.m. So you'll say, hold it, or wait a minute. How come you said you saw the body 1 p.m. but then this evidence says it died 3 p.m. So it's like that. So you look for a contradiction. It gets extremely complicated later on. So the one I told you, it's like in the first tutorial case, it's very simple, but then eventually you have to think outside the box, because later on there will be like a lot of evidences, and you have to look at each one of them very carefully, all the details and stuff like that. And yeah, it's very nice because it really makes you feel very smart, playing this game, just like Professor Layton. Of course it's very extremely contrived. Like sometimes there are streams of logic, or there are like lines of logic and reasoning that I think I'm right, or I think should be accepted. But then sometimes I try that, they will say, no, that's not correct, and then there's no way to like counter argue, but listen, this is my reasoning. So that's like one of the downside of the game, is you have to look for the specific lines of reason, or the specific lines of logic, the specific contradiction that the game wants you to look for. If it doesn't fall within that umbrella of logic that the game was designed with, then it doesn't, you're considered wrong. But eventually, most of the time, all the so I have my own reasoning, but eventually when I found the reason that the game was designed to have, that the game wanted you to find, most more often than not, like theirs makes sense, like, yeah, yeah, I think that's right. So it's really very good. Again, it makes you feel smart. And the thing I also like about this game, this is made by Capcom. So as you know, Capcom, they really love this, crossovers, like Street Fighter, cross Tekken, and things like that. Marvel versus Capcom. So they love this crossover. So what they did is, on the 3DS, one of my favorite games of all time on the 3DS, they were able to make a crossover with Phoenix Wright, the characters from Ace Attorney, and with another thinking game on the 3DS, which is Professor Layton, another game, another series that I love, that also started on the DS, and now it also went on the 3DS. It continued on the 3DS, and then I'm not sure if it will go to the Switch, hopefully. But the latest one, the I believe her name is Catriel, the daughter of Layton, I believe is already on the Switch. So yeah, but the other than the original, so this is like the original sorry, original trilogy. It also spawned, some other side series, like Apollo Justice, like another prosecutor, and then some other what do you call this? Some other sequel to the original trilogy. It also came out on the 3DS, and also there's like a Japan only game with a similar mechanics of the game, but was set. I believe it's they're like the ancestors of Phoenix Wright. It was set like during the times where when Sherlock Holmes was alive. So the nice thing is, that those two games, that one, there's like 100% fan translated, so I was actually able to play it. But the other one, there's no translation yet. But yeah, they're like Japan only, but it's really very good. So hopefully those will also come for the Nintendo Switch. So another thing that also I think is not realistic about this game is, you're the defense attorney, but then part of the game is also requires you to look for clues. But I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think, it's the job of the lawyer to do that. Like, we have police, we have detective, those are the guys that collect the evidence. But of course, in order to break the monotony on this game alone, in order to break the monotony of the court, which also I would argue is like the fun part of the court, I think the game, if it's only court session, I think it would still be fine, because sometimes, going out and then looking for clues, it breaks, the awesomeness of the game. But it's still good. You get to experience looking for clues, and then once all the clues are ready for the court session, then that's the time that you begin the court session. And man, it's so amazing. Both of the game is like, so I believe so it's a trilogy. The first game, I believe it has like 5 cases, and then usually a single case would take you around 2 to 3 hours to solve, except for the first one, because the first one is a tutorial case, so I think you can finish it in less than an hour. But then the next few cases, they're really, complicated, so convoluted and stuff. It's very cool, and they have a lot of like very wacky, weird characters and all this stuff. But anyway, again, before we move on also to Postdoc Chronicles, I also visited again the Matrix. I mentioned this before. In the Matrix, where I buy my lunch, there's like a mini bookstore there. I look at their trash bin again, the one that sold very cheap books. And luckily, I again found some science fiction anthologies. So let me just show them here very quickly. So we have here Orbit, edited by Damon Knight. So this is a famous sci-fi anthology. I think it went up to like, I don't know, number 19 or something like that before it stopped. But yeah, so I have some of these in Dumaguete. I can't remember which number, but every time I see this, I buy them because they're usually cheap. So I have Orbit number 4, also by Demon Knight. I also have this series Nova 3 edited by Harry Harrison. I believe this went up to only like 4 or something like that, but again, it's nice to have. It's an anthology. And this is a famous sci-fi author, but I can't recall at the top of my head right now whether I've read a short story from him or not, but it's C.M. Kornbluth. This is like an anthology of his, so it will be a good, if I haven't read anything from him, then it will be a good introduction to his work, because it says right there, these stories have helped to set the high standards of modern science fiction. So we'll see. I'll judge that, okay? But yeah, so very quickly, because I'm going back to school now, Postdoc Chronicles. So like I mentioned last time, I'm going to CERN this end of October for the induction of Atlas membership. So because again, NIP decided that they want to, be part of an experimental collaboration. There's an interest from the government to fund it. So now Deepak was able to process all these things, all the papers and requirements to enable me to be officially part of the Atlas group in CERN. So still, it's not yet like, before, to be officially part of like Atlas, like to be in the list of authors every time they publish a paper, it's still not that easy. You have to do like according to Deepak, like around 6 months or 1 year qualification task in order to be qualified to be part of the list of authors in Atlas. So I don't know if I'm gonna be doing that in the future, most probably, because there's a chance that I'm gonna be extended here. So because like I said, first year of my postdoc, because we didn't know that we can afford joining CERN in the first place. First year of my postdoc was focused on phenomenology. So so we didn't think that we would be part of the Atlas later on. And again, Deepak did not want me to train with Atlas skill set, because when I go back to the Philippines, if we don't have an Atlas group there, like what's the point? I go back there and then we're not. I learned some Atlas stuff, but then Philippines is not part of Atlas, so what's the point? So that was what we were thinking initially, but now we know that that the NIP, the Philippines is willing to pay to be part of the CERN collaboration. Then now Deepak can train me with the correct Atlas, the things that an Atlas member should have. And in fact, it would start with tomorrow. We will have a meeting with Deepak and his, I believe, his PhD student, Lawrence. So Deepak, early this week, Deepak asked me to read the paper, and then we'll meet about it tomorrow. So basically, the paper it was recently published. It's like a search for right-handed neutrino. So if you know, in standard model, we only have a left-handed neutrino. So there are like theories, that postulates what if they're really the left and right, what if they're really symmetric after all, and we just can't find these particles. These particles, the right-handed counterparts are maybe heavy, and then we don't know. So there are theories like that. So there's a search where they look at a decay of a right-handed gauge boson that decays into a right-handed neutrino, and then consequently this neutrino would decay into a standard model quark, I believe, and then the other one is a lepton. But basically, the neutrino, the postulated right-handed neutrino would decay into a lepton and a bunch of jets, okay, smaller jets, a bunch of smaller subjets. And then what they did is they created a fat jet that would contain the subleading lepton, the decay product of the right-handed neutrino, and all the rest. So they will be included in the large jet, and then this whole thing, the decay products of the right-handed neutrino, would be back to back with another leading lepton. So it can be like electron, it can be a muon. That was officially a decay of the original right-handed gauge boson, the WR. So basically, what you do is there's an electron that has a high PT, and then it will decay. So the WR will decay into lepton, let's say electron, and then NR, and then the NR would eventually decay into a right-handed neutrino, and then some other subjets. And so they now reconstruct the N sub R mass and also the WR mass by first of all the NR by looking at the large jet that contains the decay products of NR, and then adding to that the leading electron. So the interesting part is it looks very similar to what we considered in the stealth SUSY, because in the stealth SUSY one we also looked at fat jets, but instead of like looking at fat jets whenever there's an electron inside. In ours, it's like a photon, okay? But the idea is the same. So here, they look at, so every time they construct a large jet, every time there's a subleading lepton inside, because of course the leading lepton is the one from the original right-handed gauge boson, the WR. So basically that's that. So I read the paper. I think I'm gonna read it again tonight, so just to refresh it, so that when we talk tomorrow with Deepak, it will be more productive. And then also in the MUED project, so right now it's really weird. We're really confused because I tried running PT distributions of the compressed SUSY scenario and the MUED, and then in the compressed SUSY scenario, like I said before, there is an uncertainty between wimpy and power settings. So if we thought maybe, if because we were looking at a simple one-step decay, so maybe if we make the decay chain complicated enough, just like our MUED, because our MUED don't have the same uncertainty in the PT distribution between wimpy and power. So if we make it complicated, do we see the same uncertainty? So I tried that in the compressor C. I'm still not seeing anything. So now the next thing I'm doing right now, so it's taking a long time because I'm looking at a lot of different mass hierarchies. So right now what I'm looking at is look at the effect of so instead of a compressed SUSY, I'm trying to uncompress it. So so I start with a very small mass difference between the LSP, the lightest supersymmetric particle, and then the, let's say, stop, for example. So I make the mass difference very small, so let's say 5 GeV, and then I make it bigger and bigger, because I believe in our MUED we don't have maybe our decay chain don't have that compressed mass topology. So maybe if I make the delta M bigger and bigger and bigger, maybe we also see a decline in the uncertainty between wimpy and power. But we'll see. It's still running right now, so hopefully, like, later during the day it's gonna be finished, and then I'm gonna report it again to Jong and Roberto, my collaborators for this project. But anyway, this has been Postdoc Chronicles week number 67. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.